Chair, panel members, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here today. My family has been coming up to the same small, lovely frame cottage in Saugeen Shores, Ontario, on Lake Huron's eastern shore for nearly 80 years. I've personally vacationed a few kilometers from here every summer for about 60 years. Though some might call me a long-time seasonal resident and small property owner with voting rights, I am in reality a loyal non-person in the theocratic municipality of Nukistan. I'm only speaking now because everyone is confident that as a non-person, I can have no possible influence on the outcome of this federal environmental assessment proceeding that will determine whether Ontario Power Generation may bury some 200,000 cubic meters of intermediate and low-level radioactive waste, some of it as dangerous as irradiated reactor fuel, about 15 kilometers from our cottage and about 1 kilometer from Lake Huron, where I swim, where my children swim, and from which I and several million others draw our drinking water. But as a patriotic and appropriately supine non-person, I want to thank Bruce County mayors for not troubling me or anyone else with news of their innumerable unreported, one might even say secret, meetings on nuclear waste burial over the past several years with officials from OPG and its loyal butler, the Nuclear Waste Management Organization, which even now is happily considering 6 adjacent municipalities, including my Saugeen Shores, as a home for all Canada's high-level radioactive waste. Similarly, I feel grateful to OPG and NWMO for holding virtually all their public information sessions on the nuclear waste facility outside the summer months, just in case I and other non-person seasonal residents might start entertaining delusions of citizenship. More than 70% of seasonal residents in Kincardine showed their appreciation for this enforced ignorance by not bothering to participate in Kincardine Council's survey on the subject. Similarly, though we represent some 20 to 30% of households in these Lake Huron municipalities, we were relieved when OPG decided not to seek the opinions of any more than a negligible, statistically insignificant fraction of us in a second later survey. I'm sure you will be pleased to learn there will be many less of us around if this project goes ahead, even if the OPP try to keep us here by force instead of just coming around to see us before this public hearing. Though my cottage is only a few kilometers away from the proposed burial site for intermediate and low-level waste, OPG's strenuous public engagement efforts somehow never reached me. No doubt because it was felt municipal boundaries form an impenetrable wall of lead against ionizing radiation, radioactive particles, and any other unsavory side effects flowing from the project. As someone who has for many years observed Nukistani theocrats in action, it didn't trouble me at all that Kincardine Council completely omitted words such as radioactive or nuclear from its survey question on the repository. I can easily understand how these words might be misinterpreted by spiritually obtuse individuals who have not been irradiated in the holy glow from the blessed teachings of OPG, NWMO, and Bruce Power. I can only applaud this determination to ensure nothing as untidy as democracy gets in the way of OPG's sacred burial rites. Besides, who knows how some person of little faith might misconstrue such holy words? For example, even Dr. Alison McFarlane, a geologist and now chair of the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, blasphemously pointed out in a book a few years ago how, quote, in the 1970s, geologists from the U.S. Geological Survey and the Energy Research and Development Administration questioned the ability of models to predict the performance of geologic repositories. Since then, geologists have continued to warn about the limitations of using models to make geologic predictions, largely because they understood geology to be a science that explains the past but does not predict the future. More important, based on their experience and the theories that guide their work, geologists know that geologic systems are thermodynamically open systems where all the features, events, and processes are neither knowable nor predictable, end of quote. Even more shocking than these outrageous words to believers such as myself, I have recently learned the noxious bug of heresy seems to have spread not only to the usual whiners, traitors, and infidels, but to the sacred precincts of the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission itself. How else to explain the irresponsible talk in its July 19, 2013 long-term safety document about, quote, uncertainties, unquote, with respect to subvertical faults, sub-basement faults, potentially associated with seismic events, the lateral extent of host and cap rock formations, the area's natural resource potential for future generations with inherently unpredictable needs and technologies, the geochemistry of the site, the longevity of shaft seals, the degree of rock damage due to repository excavation, the precise characteristics of the radioactive waste to be interred, and the nature and pressures of the gas generated by microbial, physical, and chemical processes in the nuclear waste chambers. Some observers might even argue there's a possibility several of the disruptive scenarios identified by the CNSC might transpire and even interact with each other to create a potentially even more dangerous situation. To my great relief, the CNSC ingeniously redeemed itself by finding the risk acceptable and recommending a geoscientific verification program, which likely means these uncertainties can be stoically endured until work on the project is so far along, its momentum will be irresistible. After all, who cares how many uncertainties can dance on the head of a pin? In response to this resourcefulness, no doubt some frustrated heathen or iconoclast will echo Shelley's Ozymandias and point to some traveler in this future antique land finding a shattered burial shaft entrance near here. If she's lucky, OPG's battered keep out sign will still stand, though it'll be written in some long forgotten language and indecipherable script. When she explores or pillages the ancient cavern below, as human beings have always done since time immemorial, no doubt she'll find, to Bowdlerize the poet, nothing beneath remains, except, of course, death. Fortunately, I'm too loyal and devout a non-person Nukistani to give such poetic vaporings credence. Besides, we'll all be dead by then, won't we? Thank you for your time.